Welcome to the Board of Adjustment meeting, Tuesday, February 19th. Tonight, we have a couple of new members. I want to introduce Sue Descharme and Vern Ogden, the newest members of the board, and I think they're going to be great ones. On the past minutes, we're going to go ahead and table those at this point.
Do you need a motion?
I need a motion
I move you table these minutes
Second.
until,
until the next meeting.
we don't have a date.
Okay. And we will start with a roll call, and I'll help out with that. Chairman Bothroyd,
Here.
Commissioner Ogden,
Here.
Commissioner Ducharme,
Here,
Commissioner O'Neill, absent, and Commissioner Chappell, absent. Perfect. We do have a quorum.
The item on the agenda would be the applicant, Matt Hinkle. Matt Hinkle and Tyler Sign Company, I assume they're here, right here. It's conditions for granting a special exception. They're working with the owners of land located in the southwest corner of I-35 and Seward. The sign to be construction will measure 14 by 48, double-sided on the northeast corner of the property. Immediately, the sign would be static with advertisements not to change, but the applicant hopes that in the future that revenue would merit one or both sides being transitioned into digital. Is there any comments from staff? And then we'll
I have a couple of questions, if we could
go.
ask them to maybe come up to the
Mr.
microphone.
Hinkle going to talk to us a little bit about that?
And while we're waiting on him, I'm going to pass around some comments that we have received inside the office. Oh, here, I'm stuck.
These are from the mail-outs?
Yeah. So there's 3 items there.
So we can wait.
We have you standing there, but,
Sure, let's hear.
okay, I guess we
You go
can,
ahead.
he knows what that says, but you don't.
I don't, but let's pose the questions first, and then we
Okay.
can come back to
Well,
this.
since I'm a new girl in town, may I ask you what ad will be on that board? You say immediately and long-term.
Probably immediately, it will be a for lease ad, giving them direction to our phone number, website. It's simply an advertising venue. Down the street from it, probably 300-400 yards, is a Love's ad for, the next exit here, Love's truck stop. I can see the south face on it being an advertisement for any one of the new hotels that has just gotten built, out here on I-35, or the Ken's Pizza, or the barbecue place, or, somewhere further on down the road. It's just an advertising venue, just like billboards are all over the state.
And I guess, Cody, I have a question for you, and they're asking for a variance. Whose property is this? Is it state, city?
It
It tells us who it is.
I don't know that I have the last name handy, but
The Smith
I got
family,
it.
the people
Okay.
who own Mid-America Cycles down at Waterloo Road own the piece of property.
All right.
I think the history was exactly as you said, the Mid-America Cycle family, who used to be actually on that location themselves before moving down to closer to Waterloo.
I noticed for sale at this time. Did you know that?
Yes, sir.
What is for sale, that corner, right?
Property.
Yeah.
Can you give us any additional information on height? I see we have a size here, 16 by 48.
It's 14 by 48. It'll be a monopole structure, meaning one central pole, probably 36 inches in diameter, that would come up. The bottom of the sign would be about at the 35-foot mark. The top of the sign would be at the state maximum, which is 50 feet. Part of the process is, in order for ODOT to grant us a permit, we have to have the city of Guthrie grant us a permit as well. ODOT won't grant us one until the city of Guthrie grants us one, which is how we got to this point right here.
You said 50 feet at the top for height.
Yes, ma'am. It'll have lighting on both sides, shining up on the faces of it. We're asking for the opportunity in the future, if advertisers merit, to turn one or both sides into digital. That's quite a costly adventure, and we'd have to get a lot further down the road before we would want to spend the $500,000 to turn, probably the south face would be the likely one to get digital first, because it's, so close to all the businesses in Guthrie.
Do you know if they would have to come back and get a variance or approval to make that digital?
Of course, the board could ask. I think staff would actually recommend that. I know that that hasn't been something that we've talked about before, but I think transitioning from a static billboard to a electronic billboard, I think that the city staff would respectfully request that they come back before the Board of Adjustment for that as well.
Well, in the variance verbiage, it specifically says immediately sign will be static in the advertisement not to change, but applicant hopes in the future that revenue will merit one or both sides being transitioned into digital.
And I think the wording that you mentioned, Chairman Bothroyd, on that kind of is what leads us to make the request that they come back if they were to change that.
And that, in all honesty, the chances of the revenue meriting turning those into digitals would be way, way down the road. The advertising base probably just is not here to warrant that kind of investment on our part to put digital signage up there. There will probably be more billboards closer into town owned by other companies that would come in and do that prior to us wanting to do that to that billboard, if ever. So us adding that request in the variance wording was just simply pie in the sky on our part. Hopefully 10 years down the road, that's a possibility, but in the short term, it would be static for a considerable amount of time.
You're leasing this land? Is that my understanding?
Contingent on getting the permission to put a billboard there, yes, ma'am.
And how long would that lease be?
I think it's 20 years, isn't it?
And, I see. But the property's for sale, I'm not sure. Not sure how that would work. I guess if you have a lease, it would stay with
It would ride with the property, correct.
Mr. Hinkle, under our Guthrie Code of Ordinances, Chapter 4, I'm sure you read them, you're in the sign game. Article 172, et cetera, dug all that out, pretty familiar with the sign stuff, but you always dig these out. And the following signs are hereby prohibited with the city, and this is an off-premises sign, obviously.
Yes, sir.
Nothing underneath it. So I made a couple of notes, and I appreciate you being here. Maybe you can answer some of these for us. Our sign ordinances were developed and updated as necessary. Digital world, we now know about nits and things like that. We
Right.
get a little educated over a good period of time, and we spent a lot of time and effort in doing that. All making sure that the results that we arrived at were in the best interest of Guthrie, our citizen, and certainly our long-range comprehensive plan. I'm sure you've run into these with your folks before. So I personally, and I think probably speak for most of us here, strongly believe in a process to be able to request a variance, because there's always sometimes a reason for that. But if indeed the applicant of that variance can show, explain, and describe, at least to me, in detail, the reason and/or need for such a variance, such that we, or whatever, can justify that we can sidestep or ignore one of our established ordinances that we spent a lot of time putting together and obviously feeling very strong about. So I guess my question to you would be, do you have such reasons or a need to be able to explain to us why this sign should be there? Because I know the area well. I get on and off that off-ramp all the time. And I see 600 plus square feet overpowering me as I enter that on-ramp. And I'm an old freeway builder. These are big signs. And I can see that thing sitting there, and it might even be a little bit of a safety distraction for some people, because it's getting pretty close to that corner of that on-ramp. So needs, reasons why we should ignore, sidestep, or override our own ordinances, please.
Sir, my best answer would be that we've worked the deal out with the landowners. They have an opportunity to have some income generated from that property, as well as we would have an opportunity to generate some income. We've always been, Tyler Media has always been a friend of the city of Guthrie, and we're not asking for special consideration because of that, but we also own radio stations and TV stations and have been very helpful in some of the festivals and some of the things that you've put on here. We look at billboards not as a blight, but as an advertising venue that provides information to travelers about what's coming up, what the availability is of, you know, what's down the road, where they can stop and get lodging or food or whatnot. And in one of my first visits with Mr. Mosley there, he said that he thought that this was not overstepping the boundaries of what the intent of the variance was. 25 years ago, we came to town and we put up a bunch of billboards in town and have done we haven't owned them for the last 20 years. They're owned by Lamar now. But in the 10 years that we did own them and maintain them, never were they in disrepair, never were they a blight to the city, never did we put questionable advertising, objectionable advertising, and we're always willing to, you know, put something up that was community-oriented or safety-oriented or, so I don't have a concrete answer to your question. I mean, it's a billboard. It's an advertising venue. It's a piece of property that is, at present time, isn't being used for anything. It's outside of the city proper. If the size of it to you is objectionable, that would be something we could look at, is shrinking it down a little bit. I would prefer not to, because every other billboard on the highway is of that same size and stature. I would not disagree with you, but it considerably sets off the road the way that piece of property is there. It's probably maybe 100 yards from the access road where the sign would be built. There's a wide stretch of ground there from where the on-ramp goes down south and where the corner of the actual property is. So having visited with Mr. Mosley about the chances of this variance being granted, we would have never have applied for it had we not, you know, thought that there was an opportunity to sidestep the rules. And we appreciate rules. We're in the commercial sign business in Oklahoma City as well as the outdoor advertising business, and you guys don't have near the rules that they have.
That's true.
We're working on them.
Well, and we understand rules are there for a purpose, but we feel that as far out as this sign is, that it, you know, it is not going to be objectionable to anybody, and hopefully you guys can, you know, see your way to granting us this variance.
I'm sorry to interject, but I do want to touch base. When you mentioned that it was about 100 yards off of the any kind of roadway, that's kind of your almost a counter to the safety issue. Is that correct? You don't perceive any safety issue from this billboard being constructed?
No.
Could I speak,
Yes.
Chairman? First of all,
Thank you for that.
Sure.
I didn't know that you had supported so many of our projects here in town. I want to thank you for
Well,
that.
sure, you guys do a great job here. It's a fun city to come to.
Most of us, not just this panel, but most people in town consider Seward the beginning of Guthrie, and just one block begins churches, a gas station, and homes. And you turn right, go up sooner. Again, you have many homes
Right.
up that way, including mine. At 50 feet, I might be able to see your sign from my house. I think that's not Russia, but your sign. I guess I think that that is a relatively unblighted section right there. A lot of trees and that sort of thing. There's a good deal of vacant land that would have the potential for subdivisions and housing and businesses along that area, in that corridor. So I'm wondering if you've looked a little further out, perhaps back near, I don't know, back where they're doing a lot of development towards Waterloo or a little further back.
And that was my question as well. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Go right
So
ahead.
we're in the same, on the same page there. What, have you explored further south?
Yes, sir, we've explored all over the state. The way that we got to this point here with this particular piece of property is when ODOT took the land from the Smiths, we helped with their legal counsel in obtaining a settlement from ODOT that was a better deal than ODOT was going to give them to begin with. ODOT took their land and offered them pennies on what it was worth. And so their lawyers, who was also a friend of ours, asked Mr. Tyler to be an expert witness on the taking of property and of billboards. And in doing so, we formed a friendship and a partnership with the Smith family. And they had this piece of property that, all but for the fact that Guthrie has an ordinance against billboards, is a perfect spot for a billboard.
Well, I don't know that it's necessarily an ordinance against billboards. It's an ordinance against off-site billboards, which is kind of the way the whole planning commission has taken this over the course of the years. And I think that's what my issue somewhat is with it, is that it's not just a billboard. I mean, it is a billboard, but it's not you as Tyler Signs advertising your facility right there. It's an
Sure,
off-site.
it's an off-premise.
It's an off-premise billboard. And there is other land further south. And I know that there's other land further north. And I know that that might be prime land right there for the billboard in an advertising company's mind. But by the same token, these variances go back quite a ways, and I think that if it were a business that you were putting there, there might be some leniency on that. But we don't know what's going to be advertised there. It's not going to be, Jay Smith's Donut Shop that's advertised there, so to speak, or whatever. It can be whatever you want it to be. And I think that's why we have these off-site variances. So, I mean, at this point, have you dealt with the Planning Commission at all on this?
No, sir. The conversations that I have been with Chad. And he told me that with Guthrie not allowing non-accessory signs, that we would need to go in front of the Board of Adjustments to ask for permission, and that's.
You are at the right place.
Right.
Well, you're definitely at the right place for a variance.
Sure. And that's,
To a public, anything public.
that's the conversations that we've had.
And Chairman Bothert, I want to point out that we did ask the Planning Commission for commentary about, I think the deadline was 2 weeks ago, so that we had it in by the meeting. And I think that they had about 4 to 5 weeks to provide that commentary, as you've seen. One thing, just because I'm not in the billboard industry, we always hear that Edmond is moving north, and whether that happens or not, if we do ever see commercial construction on the in that Seward corridor, do you, just for proximity purposes, do you ever see someone installing another billboard that close on that same site?
The way that ODOT regulations read, and you may have to help me with this, unless you're in a city corridor, then there has to be an active licensed business on your piece of property.
Okay.
So between the south edge of Guthrie and the north edge of Edmond, except for that unincorporated little area there at Waterloo Road, ODOT, unless there's an active business on property, would not grant a state highway permit for a billboard. And then there is a spacing requirement.
Okay.
So, and that's 1,200 feet, 1,000 feet.
Okay.
You have to be, so there could not be another billboard built within 1,000 feet of that billboard. There's a Lamar billboard 1,000, 1,200 feet north of it in the church's property. And that Love's billboard is a little more than 1,000 feet south of it. So,
Down near the end of the ramp.
yes, sir. And I'm pretty sure that Love's billboard is grandfathered and has been there for years and years and years. So there would not be an opportunity for anybody else to ever build another billboard in between there. The only place you could build a billboard is where we're requesting to do that.
So anyone that maybe did build or develop on that land would probably go to you, and it would then almost turn into an on-site billboard. Is that kind of what you would forecast?
Yeah, but an on-premise business wouldn't put up a structure like this.
Okay.
I mean, this is a advertising structure. An on-premise business would probably do something considerably smaller, like the convenience store across the street.
The Shell station.
Yes, sir. And
Have you explored that,
what's that?
the Shell station?
Would that not fall into the same
I
category
was
as
just curious if
Oh.
you explored the
the,
existing business there.
the,
If the board recognizes.
Yeah.
I'm Tony Tyler with Tyler Media. Thank you for having us here tonight. We appreciate that. The county is, that section of property that you folks are talking about south of there is in the county. It's not in an incorporated area. And so it falls into a different set of rules from ODOT's perspective. And you can't put a billboard on that property. It has to be a certain distance from that Shell station, which is in the county, and then it has to be a certain distance from the on-ramp, and it doesn't fall into those requirements. So you can't really do anything south of there. The only opportunity to put a billboard here to help promote economic development is on that site.
And that just kind of addresses anything east of I-35 on Seward is outside of the city's jurisdiction.
Mr. Hinkle, I just came back from out south. Many years ago, I was with Union Oil Company in charge of their signs, if you're familiar with that.
yes, sir.
I had to stop and look at one of our 1076 signs in Desert Hot Springs, actually Blythe, I should say. It was beautiful up there, that 76 up there. We wanted those up there all over the sky. So I certainly see the marketing side of that. But I still have pretty good feelings for how large those are. And as you get onto that ramp, and it's a very pristine ramp at this time. It's very, and maybe down the line, maybe in our comprehensive plan, we can see some development happening there. And I just have to be very honest that I just don't feel that a sign at that point where you're getting on a large structure, that's a lot of square footage, that's over 600 square feet, sitting up in the air there 50 feet, and it's relatively close to that entry there. And I certainly, I hear the side that, of people seeing things, and anything southbound's probably got to affect Edmond or someplace down there, the travel stop or something. There might be something you could put on the northbound side that could benefit Guthrie. And I admit to certainly being much more prejudiced toward what can help Guthrie and things. And again, like Sue said, thank you so much for all you've done, but I just have to be honest and really feel that this is not a place for a sign, that I think down the line, there's much more things that could happen on this corner than putting a large sign there. So, that being the case, Chairman, I would make the motion that we deny the application for the variance.
So I have a motion for denial.
I'll second.
A second. A vote?
All in favor for denying the proposal, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none.
Thank you all for your
Thank you
time.
very
Thank you.
Thank you.
And at this point, if there's any staff comments,
We're good. No comments for this month's board meeting.
That's the staff right down there, right?
I'm staff.
Your
Your
staff.
staff.
sorry,
Staff. Two Fs. Two Fs. Not a PH.
you have nothing.
Nothing. Thank you.
Board?
I would like to encourage you to keep working with Guthrie. And,
Please, by all means,
Okay.
please do that.
We're growing in leaps and bounds, and we are careful in that growth. We hope you appreciate and understand that. But the next big concert, we hope to see you here. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
No comment?
Meeting adjourned.
Motion to adjourn.